I mean, being a black man in the hood and hanging out with somebody else who may or may not have been, you know, associated or known for dabbling and stuff. In that situation, I think the cops saw someone that they might be able to mess with and you know, hope they pull him over and find some drugs or some guns in the car and then jam him up on something bigger. But basically, the cops said they pulled up, and that as soon as they pulled up, he, in response to them pulling up, got in his car and dipped out, like shut off his lights and just, you know, mashed through the neighborhood trying to get away. None of which was even possible, let alone true. And how do I know it wasn't possible? Well, because me and my investigator actually went to the scene where the cop said, well, he turned off his lights and then took off at a high speed.
Right.
And so we went at night, went to the neighborhood, went to the street where he would have had to take in that route based on what they put in their reports. And you couldn't make it 100 feet without crashing into one of the cars on the side. Because number one, it's a windy road, it's a windy hill, and it's super narrow. So you know, to be going at the pace that they were saying and with your lights off, like there's no way you could have done that. And then on top of that, they had said that he turned off his lights, you know, presumably to be able to, you know, avoid detection. Interestingly enough, this car was an Infiniti Q50. And on this particular model, you can't turn the lights off. So I had my investigator go to the dealership because, you know, my client was like, hey, I didn't turn those lights off. Like I never turned the lights off. Yeah. And so she goes to the dealership and talks to like some engineer or something there. And they're like, nah, like on this model, like even if you wanted to, you can't turn the lights off. And I was like, oh. So then we shoot a video of, you know, because there are different cycles on the little notch thing. And so we're going through the different cycles and it changes the way the lights function, but there's no offsetting. So there's no possible way that he could have turned these lights off. Wow. So then these cops were either woefully mistaken or lying in the most absurd way possible. Right. So I take my investigator's statements and the videos of us cycling through the lights. And, you know, I think we even shot video of going through that route. You know, so I think I might have been driving and she was shooting the video, turn all this information over. And so you don't have to be a legal expert to sit here and listen to what I'm saying. If you're a reasonable person, then you're going to be like, okay, my cops got it wrong, or my cops are liars. I'm going to go confront them. And even like for me, because I interned at the DA's office. And so when something didn't smell right to me in a report, I would say, hey, this is what you're saying. This doesn't make sense to me. What's going on? And so, and that was me as an intern with no power, just trying to make a name for myself in this office. You know, I was nobody. And so for her, and I don't remember how long she had been practicing, but long enough to be handling a felony case in which somebody was facing years in prison. And for her to not have gone back with that information and confronted those cops and say, what the is going on here? You know, it was just really, really disheartening. And so we're in chambers, because oftentimes if there's a case where the judge sees the facts of the case, sees what's going on, and feels like the case should settle rather than wasting the court's resources, because it costs a lot to host a trial. So, you know, the judge's salary, court staff salary, court reporters, the DA, it just does. And so she has us come into chambers. She's like, why is this going to trial? Why can't you guys settle this thing? And so I'm like, well, we're worlds apart. Going back to that conversation, I think it was, you know, for us, it was dismissal or nothing. And so we were at dismissal or nothing. Yeah. The prosecutor, and I remember her saying he's going to go to prison for the 5 years. And so the judge is like, all right, what are we even doing here? So we can't make a deal. So it had to go to trial. And ultimately we were able to put on that evidence. I actually had my client take the stand and testify, and he was ready to go. He did a phenomenal job with his testimony. And, you know, at the end of the day, he was just telling the truth. But what I mean by phenomenal job is he had to subject himself to cross-examination. So, you know, if you're going to testify, then you're going to have a prosecutor, you know, coming at you. She's going to try and press your buttons. You know, isn't it true that, you know, you were trying to get away from the cops because whatever it is that she had to say. And he didn't blow up. He didn't react negatively. He did a great job. And I saw, you can read the jury will tell you with their body language when, how they feel about stuff. And so, well, obviously they believed him, and they found there was reasonable doubt as to whether he had done this, and ultimately, found him not guilty.